What's going on, crypto enthusiasts? Happy Friday. I'm hoping you guys had a phenomenal week. I want to give you guys a little bit more insight going into the new month, some ideas that I'm looking at. Just want to bring them to light for us. There's going to be some bullish narrative in here, and there's also going to be some short-term bearish narrative in this altogether. So let's dive into the daily. Some of you guys already are privy to this. If you joined me on Thursday's stream, you guys caught some of this, but I'm going to give you guys a quick recap. Essentially, what I'm looking at from a daily perspective is I'm looking at this wave count. I'll actually map it out for you guys right now. It's something I need to do on my side. So we're going to go from wave 1 to wave 2, this being wave 3, and then I have wave 4 essentially down over here. I'll share that with you in a second. And then we have wave 5 that's going to be in these higher levels. Actually, I'll minimize that a little bit so we can see where that can go to. And so we have wave 5 that can right over here, which is normal. And then we have an advanced wave that would come over here. But let's just say it's a normal wave because it's the same height as wave 1. Let's go ahead and take off those lines. So essentially, I do see that there's more downside that needs to occur. It's just a matter of, are we going to see a fake out to the upside first and then start nuking back down? That's kind of one of the ideas that I'm looking at. But overall, we are inside of a wave 4. Wave 4s can be complex and they can also form what looks like patterns. And if you're seeing here on the chart, it looks like we have a flag that's forming. There's a lot of calls on crypto Twitter for like 12K. And I was measuring this out. Essentially, this pull right here, if you take this pull and use that as the measured move, that puts you somewhere around 12K. I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon, but essentially that's kind of where most individuals are at. Now, just based on this wave count and based on this pattern that we see right now, it does look like there's a flag or essentially a falling wedge that is forming. So on the side of believing that we have more downside to come and collect, this is essentially where I think the swing longs are going to be coming down from. Now, from previous videos I've mentioned before, when it comes to a wave 2 is always going to be in contrast to where wave 4 is going to be at. So essentially this wave 2 fell flat at 0.5 fib levels. That leaves the door open for 618, 0.76, and then obviously an even sharper retracement down to 0.88. Now, it did have the option of stopping at 0.382, and you can see that here, but we've already violated that obviously on the October 10th drop, and we're finding some support over here, but now you can see that it's actually acting as a point of resistance right at that 0.382. So 0.382 invalidates that level as far as where it's going to find support and then pop up from. That's not to say that we can't get any, I would call scam wicks to the upside inside of these areas. And I'll show you that here in a moment. But for the time being, right, going into November, I feel like November is actually going to bring us down to these levels. 618, there's really not much here. There is a small fair value gap that sits inside this area and clearing that imbalance, but not much of support when we look at just the mathematics of it. So I think 618 would give us a little short-term bounce. Maybe we catch a couple little scalp longs in that area, but the big swing long is going to come down from this level. And one of the reasons why I'm also mentioning that as well too is because this move up where you see this black line, this entire move up, that essentially is a vertical run up. That's what the VRU is. And anytime you have a vertical run up, you'll have a retracement of anywhere between 0.618 down to 0.76. And that's where you see this fib out over here. This essentially is measuring that move, and that's kind of giving us some confluence. So now we have a 618 for the vertical run up where price action can come back down to retrace. We have an order block. That's what this gray box is sitting right here. And then you have the top of wave 1 being a level for Elliott wave thesis where wave 4 can come to. Typically on a wave 4, it shouldn't violate wave 1. It's not to say that it can't, but it shouldn't. That's just the normal rule. So that kind of puts us right inside this area. So I have 0.76 fib level for wave 4. I have the order block, the top of wave 1, and if I'm retracing of that vertical run up, I have 3 different areas for confluence of where it can go to. Now, if it violates these areas and comes down a little bit lower, it's still within inside of a wave 4. I would expect something like this would happen on October 10th, maybe a strong wick that pushes down into these areas. What invalidates this setup, at least this wave count, is going to be if we violate this zone right over here and we'll continue to push down lower beyond wave 2 into this fair value gap over here, right? That's going to be an invalidation if we start getting into these zones over here. So I would be looking into longing inside of these zones. Now for the short, I'm going to give you guys an idea as far as what I think is going to happen for the short. This is essentially what I was looking at. We some areas right here. There's an order block that sits inside the zone. If we look at the top of this trend line, is assuming that this is a descending megaphone. You can still look at it from a flag perspective as well too, seeing that price action gets into this zone right over here, which is right around about 4,600, and that plays into one of the ideas that we were talking about, price action getting to 46.18, 46.19 in that area, and then having an aggressive drop down to lower levels, which would put us somewhere inside over here, inside these areas. So that's an idea that I'm looking at, saying if I'm going to short and I'm going to swing short anywhere from any area, it would be taking this order block for liquidity, because there's a good amount of liquidity if you're looking on a heat map that sits right around these zones. There is on a 4-hour, and let's go ahead and open that up. There is an imbalance that sits right over here as well too, that hasn't been cleared yet. So I believe going into November, we do tap into some of these levels, right? 4400s plus, maybe even catching a little scam wick a little bit higher than that and going to this area. So I would be looking to start building my short inside of this zone if that order block is respected. Very similar to what we saw on lower time frames when price action was sitting right around 4109. There was an order block, price action went literally to the top of that order block and then retrace all the way back down to where we are at current levels right now. Now, for the time being, we did take a long just the other day when we had that drop. And so I'm going to go on lower time frames and just kind of an idea as far as what I'm looking at, where price action needs to find support. We need to find some support inside of these levels, 37.25. 37.53. I do have some fibs in the event that this recovery move that we saw up to the upside. Now let's go ahead and actually adjust that a little bit just so we can get the peak of that. There we go. Just so that the recovery that we had here was a wave 1, and essentially we're looking at a wave 2. Typically a wave 2 is always going to be sharp. So let's go ahead and remove that 0.236. 0.5 is going to be a flat. So let's look at 618, 0.76, and 0.88 levels. So these are going to be the levels essentially that I'm looking at. We do have a small little fair value gap inside this area, so it would make sense to come down into this and then move right back up. As far as where the fib levels can go to, we have a wave 3. If we are going to be looking at where a potential wave 3 is going to be at for this, we're going to go ahead and measure from the bottom of this wick. We're going to go to the top of this wick and see that puts us right around 42.20. And then we would measure a wave 5. That's going to be a little bit higher than that. And that's where I was saying, I think that that's where price action would be going. So let's go from the bottom of this wick and let's assume that we get up to these levels. I'll reverse that for us just so it's not confusing. And see, that's essentially where wave 5 would be, anywhere inside this zone. Right, this is just going to be a normal level for wave 5, and then this would be an advanced wave. So you can see just based on the mathematics, like it makes sense for us to go back at minimum to the 4300s plus, and then even potentially even having a stretch into the 4500s. And that's really what plays into the daily that we were just viewing just a moment ago. It's going to be these levels. Right, so seeing some type of move into these levels, but for the time being, if you don't have any longs and you want to long into those levels, I'd be looking for these levels right over here to maintain and then moving back up, taking profits, you know, here in these levels, potentially even coming up to this level right over here, and then looking for a wave 4 and then bouncing back into these zones. I haven't measured a wave 4. I will do that for you guys as the week progresses. But one thing we are looking for inside of November, just recapping, is we're looking for this area to be tapped into. That's really what it boils down to. We're looking for this level to be tapped into. Now, if you have any questions, any confusions about the setup, or you just maybe lost altogether, feel free to reach out to me, shoot me a DM. If you guys didn't catch it just the other day, I will be doing crypto Thursdays every single Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I'll be streaming live calls, giving some education on different strategies from Elliott wave thesis to TD9 sequential accounts to smart money concepts to even patterns. So it's going to behoove you to be inside that, especially if you're new to the crypto space, or if you just want to have a little bit more refining to your strategy, things that you can incorporate with your setups to make you a better trader, make you more profitable. We will also be discussing risk management, how to hedge, what a hedge looks like, and essentially the psychology behind being a profitable trader. Other than that, I hope you guys have a safe Friday, a safe Halloween, be profitable going into the next week. Be safe, and God bless you. Peace.